Assalamu alaikum, and thank you so much for being here and giving your time to the CEJ. And this is important for us both because you have been an important woman in our politics, in our history, and also because you worked as a journalist and you were the editor of the Herald. और आज भी जो है वो मैं देखती हूँ कि ट्विटर पे लोग शेयर कर रहे होते हैं the time that you were the Herald editor and the stories that you did. So yeah, I would love for us to start from there and kind of you could take us through the journey of yourself in the media back in the 80s, I believe.
That's right. So yeah, I don't know when and how you will connect this to Women's Day. I believe it's for Women's Day. So International Women's Day is important for all of us. Thank you for having me and for sharing, for being able to share my thoughts to a whole platform of, I hope, younger people and new stars in the making, both in journalism, activism, and politics, because to me those were always all connected, activism, journalism, and politics. And from the purest sense, a very, very purist journalist, professional sense, many of my colleagues felt that activism was not part of an editor's kind of daily task. But I think that the times we grew up in kind of mixed all of that up, both in our practice as well as our daily, our innermost thought process. So while our everybody's interior world and sort of moral world is different from each other, there was this uniting bond in the English journalism circles and many in Urdu as well. The vernacular press was also in the front line in the movement for the restoration for democracy. So literally, I started my journalism in those times when democracy was out of reach, and it was of principal importance to restore that, both for journalism, for activism, for our politics, and for public service to be meaningful. And for all of us, many of us, those were all the same things. At least for me, they were conflated in one kind of ideological momentum, if you like. And somehow, I joined journalism in 1979 when I came out of A levels and spent two very grueling but intense immersion years, if you like, in learning the nuts and bolts of reporting, editing, everything to know about journalism. And then I went off to college, to Smith College after that. And this was in the Dawn Group, and there was a newspaper called Star, and we reinvented the magazine, the Weekend magazine, as a feminist, first probably feminist magazine. After me, Zora Yusuf took over that. Stellar senior people and voices in both feminism and journalism in Pakistan. So those were really heady times. And then I returned to Pakistan after graduating. In 1985, I rejoined the Dawn Group. I went into management for a year and a half and then became a Herald editor in 1988, because I really wanted to learn everything there is about newspaper publishing. It was something I can't get out of my veins, if you like. I think ink still runs there. I mean, I used to be the only editor. There were senior editors in that building. I used to go down there to the printing press, to the bowels of the building, smelling of when the papers were being printed always. So I knew all the unionized staff, and we were all great friends on the shop floor, if you like. So yeah, I was hands-on.
How is it?
And I think
Sorry, I'm cutting
that
you.
those were
Love there was a bit of a time lag, so sorry, I think I cut you off. But I'd love to know how it was for you as a woman editor, though, because abhi bhi jo hai, there are few, and there have been few over the past decades. So how was that experience like? Did it feel any different, or was it a conducive space to practice as an editor?
I think that honestly, even at that time, because I was in a protected publishing space, if you like, not from politics. I mean, I had to face charges and be in lockup and sort of constantly seek bail from a very authoritarian setup. But then so did my reporters who lived unprotected lives. They drove home in motorcycles in criminalized neighborhoods. So I don't think that I'm from a middle class background. Naturally, I came there and I drove to work in a car, and I feel just that was enough protection. So this constant valorization of the self as a woman who's navigating space is or to me this I feel intellectually dishonest doing that, because honestly it was in English journalism in the dawn group specifically, which still retains professional editors and standards. We were very privileged and protected. I mean, you management would have a tough time even telling us what to do. And once I remember I was put in, was supposed to be in lockup, CIA lockup, criminal lockup on the weekend because of a story on rape, a cover story. And I protected my reporter. I gave him a different byline that protected him. But really, he was more at risk than I was. And I told him, I will take the brunt of this. And the management did, of course. And that's when I remember how activism, politics, and all merged into one. I was in the courtroom seeking bail, and there was a whole the it seemed like half the People's Party was in the courtroom, and I remember Salman Taseer Shahid being there, and Iqbal Haider, and many other people I hardly knew, but they were there because that's what the People's Party used to do. And civil liberties were crucial, human rights were crucial, and they were there. And I think all their presence, the Human Rights Commission was, of course, there, all of them, and many of us were. I was also in the Human Rights Commission, but loads of people. And then the judge would then consider, then that they make a small courtroom, they're thinking, okay, let's give a bail, there's so many people here and this will become a big political case. So yeah, I mean those things intersected at many points, and slowly that's even on Women's Day, for instance, we were on the street and we wouldn't have enough people. And those times the WAF, Women's Action Forum, etc., it was a fragile space on the street, either for media rights or women's rights, and I was there for both. And we would need the critical mass that political parties bring. So we would be calling the PDP, the ANP, the secular parties at that time to send their numbers, and that's how we all sort of crisscrossed into the political world. And I remember the movement of restoration for democracy. MRD used to be run from some of our offices, not on my office, but from the lawyer's office in the second floor, Iqbal Haider, many others. So those were heady times. There were times of great resistance, and journalism occupied a very different space. I mean, you were just constantly practicing resistance journalism, if you like, to the Ziaul regime and others. And so being a woman had its ups and downs. Of course, I was 26 or 27 when I became editor, and everybody was older than me. But they were like, Idris Bakhtiar was all of 55 years old, and these was to me at that time. I'm 60 now, but at that time that was like, wow, these senior editors, Zafar Abbas, Abbas Nasir, Zahid Hussain, these were luminaries, Talat Aslam, and I was literally their boss. So I had to just pretty much in a lot of work and be dragon lady all the time, and that just kind of became a habit. But we all sort of remained friends today till today. Those were literally the best times of my life. Those 10 years as editor Herald was a defining time. Yeah.
Yeah, and what a fantastic group of people you've mentioned, from Iqbal
Oh,
Haider,
more
Salman
Hussain
Rushdie,
Zaid,
Talat Abbas
all
Nasir.
of
Hmm, amazing. So, since we're talking about a bit on politics also, I wonder how you've seen the space change for women here, not in terms of women's participation in particular, but in terms of how much you feel valued and heard, and how women are referred to in political language of today. Because आपने बीबी के साथ इतना वक्त गुजारा है, और over the years you've seen things change. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
It's an excellent question, and it's unfortunate that it's 2021 and we are constantly. I mean, I've just done another keynote talking about women in politics, and you ask yourself, why not just politicians? You know, you also would be asking that question. What is your life like as a politician? What are your goals? What defines your day? Where do you think you meet reversals? No, but we are always and often needing and having to ask what it's like being a woman in politics. So there are two role models in my head. I was arguing with somebody about that yesterday from Lahore on the phone. I'm actually publishing a book called Woman's Planning. It should be out end of March.
Fantastic.
It's called
Congratulations.
Women's Planning: Navigating Modernity, Politics, and Women's Activism in Pakistan. And I'm very proud of the 22 women who have written in there
Mhm.
for me, and including myself. I mean, I've edited it and I've written an essay on women in politics. And you'd think things would change, but no, we're still always carrying that nimbus. There's always an anomalous, the scent of a species diverted from their original track, which is, of course, the mummy track. And you'll find women find that in boardrooms, they find it in politics, but politics is a much tougher space than, say, journalism. It's just another ball game. It's another league of impositions, if you like, that men make on you and expect from you. There's a constant need to reinvent your not just your gravitas every day, but that you have to ask for your voice. You have to constantly navigate the need for having a seat at the table, at the decision making table, not the tokenism table. There are many of
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
all of that always, but it's the decision making table where you have a voice, where you can actually say no. I think we need to sort of mediate this situation this way. We're discussing names just today. I got a text from Chairman Bilawal. He's in Lahore and I'm in Islamabad. He's like, are we getting the right names for the National Women's Commission? We
Mhm.
should make sure that people on merit are appointed, and things like that. So there is still always, even if it's rushed in the storm and drung of politics, there's a need to keep women and women's interests front and center. But support is actually crucial.
Right.
Support from men
Yeah.
in your political world. I mean, they can be allies, they can be friends,
Mhm.
they can be people in positions of power who don't trivialize the work you do, who don't see you as an object. But you will still see the media constantly saying, "ये handbag लेके आई हैं, ये फला shawl पहनी है, आज red lipstick है," whereas they won't speak about the Hermes, orange Hermes tie that my colleague is wearing, right? No, of course not. The suits are to be kept apart from this, but women are objectified. Even the best of men will say, "Oh, you're looking so wonderful today," or "so beautiful," not saying, or "how dressed you are, well dressed." You're not saying your speech was fantastic. Now I get that. Okay, I get speech was fantastic now, or it needed this, or a critique, which I really appreciate.
Right.
But it's the thing of secular politics or progressive politics completely redefines the space you're in. If you're a woman in a progressive party, you can breathe, you can struggle to find a voice, and you can expect to be counted in decision making. But if you're not, I mean, I don't want to take names now, but lots of parties don't make women federal ministers. And if they make them federal ministers, they're in what they call soft ministries, which don't crisscross hard power, if you like, national security, things like that. They won't put women in positions like that, or they'll make them junior ministers, which are state ministers, which I find completely unacceptable. But the People's Party, at least, there's constantly that. I mean, they made me women leader of opposition, which is not a state office. The state offices still surround you with a paraphernalia of structure and support. But a leader of the opposition is somebody in the pit, or a parliamentary leader, someone in the pit right now, right then, making decisions, seeking to lead a house of fairly conservative people to leftist parties. There's a lot of, in the Senate, for instance, there's equal representation. There's a lot of leftist parties as well, particularly from Balochistan, etc. So you're leading all of them. And for my party to be risking that and saying, well, no, we'll put Sherry there, was very, it's very rare. I mean, I don't think any other party would do that. It's one thing saying you, if you're foreign minister, your ambassador, your speaker, those are offices surrounded by structure and they do buffer you. Having said that, I don't see any other party even doing that, so
And it's
I'm not just for my part. So I am also a vice president and I'm a pretty aggressive one. I mean, I don't let things go. So people are like, all right, now Sherry Rehman is going to say something. And why not? I find I'm often supporting younger women when I see them on a table and they're not getting support from their political party, not mine, and they're being called beti ye kar dengi, ha, she'll do this, beta. I said, don't constantly say, don't. She's a full grown adult MNA. Don't infantilize her, and she has a name, and she's being gracious enough to take legal notes right now, but that's not going to be her job all the time. Don't infantilize her. Her name is so and so. She's as much an MNA elected as you are. And that later on, she's very grateful, but they still don't, the women are not given those opportunities or support that they need. So I always tell everyone, as long as I'm in the room, make it happen for yourself.
I love that.
You did that for me all the time. You could not cross me because she was in the room. And I have to do that for others, you see. Yeah.
I love that. Thank you. Thank you for that response, and thank you for the work that you do for other women around you. Lastly, Shaman, since you mentioned Women's Action Forum, you mentioned activism, and you've been such a crucial part of activism, especially in the 80s, where we had, and we continue to have a rich history, but उस वक्त जो एक दौर से हम गुजर रहे थे with respect to feminist politics. And in the past few years, we've seen a sort of re-emergence, for perhaps in different ways, for different things. But these women gathering in public places, adding on to new cities every year. What do you make of this new?
So I think crucial fourth wave, you can call it a third wave or a fourth wave, but we call it the fourth wave of but really in very broad terms, you're quite right, it's a second wave. The first one was in the 1980s, and I was a part of it. It was very different. It was smaller and less inclusive. Yes, we did have peasants. We did have urban women from the lowest rung of the social pyramid, from the factories, but it was tough going. The state was against you. Dande padte the. A policeman's maybe always going off, and Regal Plaza in Karachi, Regal Chowk, nikal rahe, and then it's 50 people, some progressive journalists with you, some lawyers with you. In the end, it would be that, and then some political parties. So it was tough, and you were constantly vilified for being urban, for being middle class, for being educated. Like that's a disadvantage. No, I think that's a responsibility of urban educated women. I mean, instead of having kitty mornings, please sit with each other and work for supporting each other, and how outside your small circle, you can reach out and build bigger convenings for making rights meaningful and accessible to, and opportunities accessible to women. And because this is a very structural crisis we face, it's not just about having choices and voices, which is what a lot of the global women's movement sometimes filters into, because it's about boardrooms. It's not just about choices and voices. This is structural patriarchal change needed. I mean, anti-patriarchal change needed, because it's built in. The misogyny, the assumptions, they're built in across the class divide, obviously less so at the top, because at the bottom you are facing multiple challenges and what I call deprivations. And those all, sometimes when you're working from morning to night and doing a double shift at home, which many women are, even in the middle classes, even in the upper classes, if you're working, you're always doing a double shift, just whatever you are, wherever you are. I mean, my husband has learned to cook over COVID, so I'm not that I ever cooked, But the point is, that's me at 60, and that's what I'm able to negotiate with my life. But everyone hasn't. I know what you put in. If there's a dinner party also, bhai, I still do that double shift. I'm running around because I want it a certain way and no one else is going to do it. But I mean, women are washing clothes, raising children, and raising children across any class. I mean, if you're not a nanny mummy, then it's grueling. I remember waking up at 6. I've barely come home from the night shift. You just still have to, somehow you never sleep, as you young women know. Thank God I'm past all that. But those years, the mummy years are tough for women. And there's no one there to take the burden off you. Extended families in South Asia at least do that. But here we are talking about all sorts of things. What I like about the Aurat March and this wave is they're talking about their body politics. They're talking about everything. मतलब किसकी मर्जी होगी आपकी body पर? What are you supposed to say? My body, your point of view or your मर्जी? I don't get it. So what do people want? It's not. It's been sometimes deliberately misread as licentiousness, as if these women want to go out there be sexually depraved. That's not what they're talking about. Women are saying, if it's my body, I get to make the choice on who I marry, what healthcare I have access to, and what choices I make. And I think that's even allowed by religion, by Islam. They insist that you have a wakil and a witness sitting at your wedding nikah ceremony, so that you are not coerced, and that you are marrying after 18 at your choice. I mean, that's why I have moved a bill, and I think it's very important for, if you can vote at 18, only vote at 18, then why should you be married off under that age? You don't know who you are or what your choices can be or how you defend yourself in another house or how you have access to healthcare or education. You won't even know how to pace your pregnancies. So these are really important issues, and today's Aurat March is addressing a number of them. The body politics, they're more open about their sexuality, whereas we in our movement had to. I mean, we were facing a situation where women were going to jail just for saying I got raped. Right? It's a bizarre situation. So do give us credit. We changed those laws, but no, and thank God nobody has to, because all our Aurat March or International Women's Day marches were Hudud ordinance ko band karo. It's gone. Because that's the first thing we did when we reached Parliament in 2002. It's the first bill I moved, and then they had to respond by 2005 to do that. So we were constantly fighting insane, bizarre laws that were being, imposed on women. You had to sort of, women's bodies were constantly a subject of invasion and critique, and there was this legalized, institutionalized structure being imposed of control and manipulation on women and their choices, and the structures and architecture of patriarchy were just closing in on women. Even constitutional rights we were being stripped of even the lip service to equality. So we were fighting those all the time, change this law, change that law. The good thing about that was those women remain engaged with state and government,
Right.
meaning that they would constantly lobby political parties and say, this is what we want, this is what we need to change. And I found those partnerships transformative, actually. Those were transformative because to this day, we have those friendships, we have those communication bonds that don't break. The younger women have a recoil against politics. So there's a separate, they see partisan politics as the same thing as politics. No, what you're doing in Aurat March is also politics. And never make that mistake that we can do politics in a vacuum. It has to be, it has to translate into change for people less privileged than yourself, or even yourself, and translating big social structures to for big social structures to change even legally. At the first step is legal always, and then you get the law is there for instance, sexual harassment. But the next step is social and cultural. But for that first step to be taken, for the state to be part of the legal assertion given to you, the legal right given to you, which is your right, it's not given, it's taken. All rights are taken, never given. then in this scenario, these women have to, our younger women, I'm meeting them in a little while, have to engage with political parties, have allies in them, build equities for change, build critical mass, and not be so kind of scared of partisan politics. You don't have to join a political party to have allies in them. You know, nothing is, there shouldn't be binaries in any kind of forward thinking on how to build alliances, because God knows women need allies.
Thank you so much, Ms. Rehman. It's been such a pleasure to speak to you. And thank you not only for your time, but your perseverance, your courage over decades now.
Sorry, we couldn't talk more about journalism. I have lots to say, but we just got diverted into women's politics.
Maybe that's an opportunity for us to meet you again then.
I look forward to it.
And really, on behalf of the CJ, myself, women younger than you, I'm so very grateful that you and people like yourself have paved a better world for us. And I'm so glad for all of us that today we can at least argue and fight over Mera Jism Meri Marzi. Although I wish we didn't have to. But even coming here has been a process that people like yourself have led us to. So thank you very much. Thank you very much for your work, and a very happy Women's Day to you. Thanks.
Great talking to you.